All right. Okay, good. And okay, I think it's working. So we've got just a minute or so before class here, so I should mention the job fair coming on Tuesday. You come here and apply for a job if you like. Not all these people will necessarily be there, but you'll have some jobs there. We don't know exactly who's coming yet, but I know several people are coming. NCC will be there, the Housing Authority will be there, and I think a few other people. So anyway, it's been a big hit in the past. So this thing would minimize if I was lucky. There we are. All right. So check that out if you need a job or if you want to just find out what employers want. All right. And I think, yeah, within 1 minute of the official time, I think I'm going to call it good enough. So this is CNIT 50. This is one of these one-unit classes. It only meets a total of 6 times every 2 or 3 weeks. I have to move one already because there's a cyber competition on this day. So check the website for the schedule. So this is the first meeting. Next one is February 9, then March 9. So really just sort of once a month for the first few months, then it becomes a little more frequent. I've taught this class before, and I did it with open source tools. It used to be Security Onion, and Security Onion is miserable. It totally does not work. It makes you cry. You can have a room full of students installing it, and half of it works, half of them it don't, half the tools don't work. It's like most open source products, it is really sort of a pre-beta version of anything. The developers can make it work and everybody else can't, but it's free. And as far as I can tell, the purpose of Security Onion is the same as the purpose of Oracle Open Office. It is to torture you until you finally pay what it costs to buy something that works. So you can use Security Onion until you get tired of suffering, and then you will pay what Splunk costs. Splunk is very expensive, thousands of dollars a year, and everybody pays it because it really works. And how long do you really want your staff wasting their time using a piece of junk that doesn't work? How much does your staff cost? It turns out to be a better plan to actually buy good stuff to use. Splunk is wide by 85 of the Fortune 100 companies.
For criminals and gang members to enter the United States, including the criminal aliens who murdered
us on this class.
A brave California
flag, and I'm hoping to get them to come and visit us and give talks and stuff. They're very interested in having a cert class, so I switched this class to just be a Splunk certification class, which you will find to be very easy. I was preparing these projects this morning. I did all of them this morning before breakfast. I did them before I knew it was gone, but if you've ever used a database, then you will find Splunk to be very familiar. The whole point of Splunk is it's Google for log data. You have little agents all through your network on your routers and firewalls and on your web servers and email servers, and everything is sending the data to a central point. Then you have a Splunk indexer that builds a database, and then you have Splunk search engines, probably a cluster of servers, to search through it, and you can just search through the log data efficiently. And that's how you do it. It is the leading SIEM solution, Security Information and Event Manager. As we were talking before class, there are people that have devices and they put logs on it, but the logs are good unless somebody looks at them. And if you just have some poor human told to like grep through the logs, it's miserable. And Splunk makes it easier to find the bad stuff in the logs. It doesn't ever get enormously easy, but it is reasonable, and you'll find it's not too demanding to learn it. So there's no textbook, and all we're doing is using the Splunk free online course. You have to go here and register, and you will get 30-day access to a free online course. If you do not finish in 30 days, I took my course materials and archived them. That's why there's a link down here. I'm already getting questions about it. There's a link you can't get to. There's a link called Archived Class Materials. You don't need those unless you exceed your 30-day trial and you don't save them yourself. And they all say not for distribution and have my name on them, so I'm not just publishing them openly. But if some student somehow can't get to the online stuff, talk to me and I'll give you my copy of the online stuff. But it's just the same stuff you get by logging in, and probably the stuff you get by logging in is more updated. So that's what you should do. Get your own copy. You'll find it's just a bunch of PDF files and videos. The videos are nice little 5-minute lectures that are really quite informative. And there's a big PDF with slides, which I'll use for slides in this class. And there's a bunch of little PDFs of homework projects. So that's it. Just go right through the Splunk class. There's a test. I took the test. I got the cert a month or two ago. It's just 1 hour with maybe 40 or 50 questions. all things that are in this class. So it's not very challenging. It's like much less than an A+ or a NET+, but it's very good. And then you're qualified to do the basics on Splunk, and that matters. Everybody's using it, and you need people who know how to do it. So there are also advanced certifications, which I'm not very interested in. They didn't look too exciting, but this is the first one. You'll get this glorious badge, Splunk Core Certified User. So I recommend it. And after we've done all that, I'm hoping I'm going to probably use Boss of the NOC or Boss of the SOC as an advanced project. That is their CTF game to learn Splunk. And it's very good. We played it twice. So you were there, and my team won both times. And some of them are open source, so we can use them in class. And I'm sort of hoping to talk those guys into coming and running one live for us, which they might. We'll see. But anyway, so are there any questions about anything? Well, let me just start talking about it. Now, first, I'm going to start installing Splunk. You can put it on any operating system you want. You can even use this horrible one, which I almost never use for anything, but you can totally use it on Splunk. By the way, around like Project Lab 10, you'll find out that you need a little more RAM than default. So it's best to give it 4 gigs of RAM instead of 2. But it works, everything works even with just 2 gigs of RAM. So all you do is install this just the way you'd install anything. There's really nothing to it. And what you're getting, give it something here. Okay, what you're getting is a 60-day trial of their enterprise product, and after 60 days, it supposedly lowers to the free version. Mine was giving me annoyance, so I was just impatient. I just uninstalled it and reinstalled it, and I'm back to 60 days. So that seems to be a fine alternative. The licensing, I can see this product is very expensive. The 60-day trial will run out, and if the free version is free forever, but it is limited to only a certain number of megabytes of data per day, which is not very much. So you can use it for training, but you couldn't really connect it to real servers. You'd have too much data. You'd hit the limit. And that's the idea. But what we're going to do here is we're going to use archived data. We're not going to be monitoring a live network. We're going to just download a file that contains events from a live network and look at that. And then you can practice using the tool, and we all know exactly what you're going to get. And I can have homework assignments where you have to find things and it'll be all exactly the same and all that. That is not the way you use it in a production environment, but it is the way you do training, very practical. And there's no license limit on how much data you can analyze in that regard. The only limit is on monitoring live data, because of course that's the commercially important product. And for that, they want you to pay a pile of money, which people do. So I really think it's very nice. I really appreciate people with training products that make them free, have some kind of free version. If they don't do that, it's mighty hard for me to use them. So could you mute everyone? Oh, thank you. Yes. Mute everybody. Thank you. All right. So I have the slides. The slides are one of theirs. The slides. Okay. The slides all come as one big PDF. So I'm going to talk about these while that thing installs, and then I'll go back and demonstrate some stuff. So I would make it big if I could figure out how to operate my computer. That'll probably do. All right. Like I said, there's that warning. I'm not supposed to be distributing this or anything. So you can get your own copy by logging in. Anyway, so there's 13 modules, and they are very short. Each one is like 4 or 5 slides and one hands-on project that is not too daunting. So that's why you'll see my schedule is you do like 3 or 4 of these modules per class, and that is not too much. You'll see how short they are. We're going to do 4 modules right now. So first thing is just to say, what is Splunk anyway? It is just, like I say, it is just a search device to search through log files. They call it Google for log data. That's essentially what it is. So you've got, you take data from forwarders, from all your devices, you put it in an indexer, which saves them, and then you can search through them to retroactively look for things, and you can trigger alerts that will warn you when things happen. Like, for example, there are a lot of error messages on the web page or something like that. It can watch when too many customers are getting 404s, when there are too many failed logins to your service, and any other thing you want. You can monitor those and then sends alerts about them. And you can also make reports for management that are beautiful with big numbers and bar charts and live data, so you can have management executives take a look to see how many sales did we have this month, how many errors did we have this month, or whatever you want. So you can use it for performance monitoring or for business success monitoring, monitoring sales and comparing it to areas, or the main application people think of for security monitoring to detect attacks. You can find out which machines got compromised, where the people logged in from that machine, which machines got malware, what kind of malware it was. how it spread. All these things are in your log files, and with Splunk, you can pretty easily find them. So you can take data from anything, virtual machines, hardware devices, servers, phones, any kind of device that can have any kind of log can be configured to forward it. And the Splunk has a very powerful user community and a lot of paid people working at the company writing agents for every device. So there is some kind of agent available, and you could, of course, write your own. All it's doing is forwarding the traffic over the network like syslog. It's nothing very fancy. So you got these forwarders all over your network, gathering data from all the devices, and it doesn't have to be explicitly log files. It could be anything else, like it could be Windows events. But then it forwards it to the indexer. The indexer labels them, puts timestamps on them, formats them in a format with certain key fields so they can easily be searched, and then stores them in zipped archives so you can store a vast amount of data efficiently. And then the search engine is what takes queries from the user who is writing this query in a query language, and then searches the index. And so it turns out that the forwarders have very little work to do. They're very small and light, so they don't want to slow anything down. The indexers have more work to do, and the search heads really have a lot of work to do. So when you read the official Splunk stuff, they talk a lot about carefully writing your queries to make them faster, because the search job can really be quite big and slow and expensive. Yeah.
So are you writing the queries for the indexer so it knows where it's getting the data from, what kind of format it is or whatever, or is the indexer so also amazing that it knows every possible type of data?
This is a very good question. When you choose to feed in the data, if you have a Splunk agent, then I think that's already there, that's pre-made, I think the indexer knows how to use it, although I haven't done that. That's not part of this course, setting those up. The entry-level people don't set up the data collection. They just analyze it. But I think there are agents that are pre-configured with data types, and you can also write their own and customize them. And you may have to, of course, because you might have some gadget that puts out the log in a different format, and you have to tell it where's the timestamp, where's the IP address, or whatever else you think is important. So, and we will do that. When we import data, we're going to practice 3 ways to import it. We'll do it soon, and you'll see some types of data it recognizes and automatically does. Other times you have to tell it what to do. Because, of course, that's important. So the real answer is, of course, it just depends on how standard your stuff is.
Right.
If you have standard expected stuff, it will understand it. If you have some weird off-brand thing or a custom thing you wrote, you'll, of course, have to customize the indexer.
Right.
Yeah, good. Very good point. All right, so then there are some fancier. Splunk Enterprise is what we mostly use. Splunk Cloud is where you would send your events to the cloud and analyze them there. That's an option. And then there's some version of Splunk Lite for small environments. We're just going to use Splunk Enterprise, but we're going to be using it on archived data that's not too big. That's why we can run it on just a single machine with minimal resources to practice using it. But that, of course, you need more power behind it to use it in a real enterprise class environment. And you can write apps, just like almost every product I can think of, Nmat, Metasploit, and everything. It is a framework, and you can write apps and add custom apps to it for your environment. And of course, that would be a cool thing to do, and the community keeps writing them and putting them up. So we used them in the Boston the Knock. I knew you were there. They had this like threat analysis app that would detect like ransomware and stuff. So those things are out there, and you can download them and deploy them. I think there's free ones and pay ones. And you can write your own. There's some language you write them in. I don't know what it is. I would imagine it's Python or something simple like that. That's usually what it is. And then they have the fancy stuff. They got a special enterprise security version. They got user behavior analytics, which I think is to try to find insider threats. That's all the rage these days. And they got artificial intelligence Splunk to do whatever that does. None of that is used in this cert class. I've never seen any of that stuff really go. I'm pretty skeptical. One thing I know is I'm sure it costs a lot of money, but I cannot say how powerful that stuff is. But of course, everybody has to have an AI version. You're not cool if you don't have an AI version now. If you don't have an AI version of your product today, it's like not having a website in year 2000. I don't think it has to work, but you have to have it. Anyway, so it's got the usual users and roles. You got administrators that are just what you think they are. They can do everything. You've got power users, and you got users. Most of what we're going to do here is a power user. By the way, this is something I've seen in other products, like I think Security Onion. There you can bring in data, but one thing that was really hard in Security Onion is to delete data, and Splunk has a different approach. It is impossible to delete data. Once data is in, you cannot remove it at all. This is by design, of course, because the bad guys would like to delete the data. And there is no way to take data out. That is the design of the product. I mean, except to like wipe the disk, reinstall it. The whole point is nothing is ever supposed to be removed. You can tell a query to only query events from the last day or only from certain sources, so you don't have to keep slowing everything down by looking through the data, but the data is always there. That's the whole point of the damn thing. All right. So you just log in, like many products we've seen that can't be bothered to write their own GUI. Why should they? Especially if they're multi-platform. They just connect it to a little web server, and then you log in at localhost 8,000 and log in there with local self-signed HTTPS. Then you control it from there. And mine should be ready to go by now. Yep, it's done. So launch a browser with Splunk Enterprise as the default. So you finish. I'll just use Internet Explorer because we're down to the very basics here. This is a plain being blocked. Oh yeah, I got to turn off this stinking enhanced security thing. That is in Server Manager. All right, this is Microsoft trying to save me from doing this stuff. Local server. All right, excuse me while I try and fix my resolution, which is way too low. Yeah, how about you just knock it off? All right, just personalize. When I connected it to the projector, it set my resolution to something ridiculous. Let's see if there's, this is a Microsoft search engine. It, of course, can't find anything like that. It can't find Splunk either. I don't know why Microsoft pretends to have a, I did find the resolution, by George. Resolution. As long as you wait the right amount of time, it can actually find the screen resolution. Okay. Yes, that was the plan. Ah, resolution. Okay, let's try something bigger. All right, let's try something even bigger. All right, is it changing? Let's see if I can get the server manager yet. No, it's getting so big it doesn't fit on the screen. That's what it's doing, yeah. You know where it is? I changed this, make the text and other items larger. You think so? All right. A custom scale factory set. Oh. Well, I don't mean to do that. Let's turn off custom scaling. Neat. Okay. Neat. All right. Let's see if that did anything. What happened is I must have had it zoomed up for some previous attempt. Okay. Let's see what's happening now. Ah, good. Thank you. You're a champ. All right, so let's go local server and enhanced IE. There it is, IE enhanced security configuration. VMware Tools has modified things to mess them up. Oh yeah, sure, thanks. How about you stop modifying things? All right. Okay, so are you guys done messing with me? Local server, I'm just trying to turn off the stinking Internet Explorer security, which is here. It's on, and now it's off. Off, I say. Off. Okay, now I can launch Splunk, and now I get to whine about Microsoft. If you click Start and type Splunk, it can't find it because it's on the Microsoft program menu, and that's too hard for Microsoft. You got to click Start and then look for Splunk right there. But Microsoft can't find it. Anyway, you get used to this nonsense. All right, so now this is the glorious Splunk Enterprise interface. I wonder if I can zoom in. Anyway, all right, let me make one more attempt to get back to a good setting here. I made it like too small now. So let's go back to resolution. Yes. Okay, and now change it back to something like it was, like 1600 by 1200. Let's see how that looks. I'm afraid this doesn't change anything. I'm going to go down one more, and then I'm going to just try and live with it. All right.
Good question.
Yeah.
Using Windows because you.
Oh, for no particular reason.
Do that, or you're just a masochist?
No, just a masochist. Absolutely. It's not because many students, in fact, use Windows, and I try occasionally. You can totally put it on Ubuntu, which is what I did. It runs on everything. Anyway, so admin and password. I'm going to log in, and then you get this web page. Okay, so what you got is the, I could help you with stuff. I'm not going to help you with stuff. Okay, so this is the home page. Here's where you have apps, and by default, you only have one app called Search and Reporting. And so you can, there's going to offer you tutorials and stuff. I'm going to remember my password here. So you can go to Search and Reporting. And now it's going to give you a interface where you can start searching things. There's a tour, which I'm going to skip. I could now put query terms here, and it would search, but there's no data. So this is the first module, what I just did, installing it, that's it. That's what I mean when I see these modules are pretty small. So we'll come back and feed in the data, but let's do some more of this stuff first. So you got apps. We're going to use home and search and reporting. That's all we're going to use in this class. And the search and reporting can be used to do searches and also to make reports and even alerts. So here's the home app showing you this stuff, and there's other apps down here, but which you're not going to use. And you can build dashboards, which are just presentations of the data with things like bar graphs and such. So here's where you get to search and reporting. And one of the most important things about search and reporting is the time range on the right. By default, it will always search just the last 24 hours, which is very annoying for us because the data will be dated on the day you import it. And by next week, it will be a week old. So all the searches will find nothing unless you keep remembering to switch to all time here. And the labs will keep on reminding you in a production environment, don't use all time, because remember, it keeps all the data forever and all time gets really slow. In our situation, all time is fine, but in a production environment, you have the time is the most important thing to make your searches faster, is to narrow the amount of data coming in to some reasonable amount.
Is there preferences on that search so you can actually set that to not last 24 hours?
I'm not aware of how you can change the default. There might be some way. There probably, because all in config files, I'm sure you can do it. I haven't seen it in the GUI. So anyway, you got search bars here. You got all your search queries are kept in history here, which is pretty nice. You can go back and see what you did, and you can explicitly save them, and you can save them so other people can run them, or so other people can't run them, and you can save them as fixed static data, or you can save them as queries that are run again every time someone runs them. So you can do many good things with that. You can have a report to go to the boss, and you can have a query pre-configured for your junior analyst to look at that tells you if this bad thing has happened today or not. That always updates every time they go there, because, you know, they're serious about it. They thought of all these use cases and provided for it. So I'll see, I got another query coming in. 25 plus of us were in Science 37. Well, crap. I'm in Science 200.
There's a sign on the door.
Yeah, well, anyway. Well, they may come up here. Anyway,
and there was some people that said they class started like 20 minutes ago.
We were there, popped our head in, read the sign, came up here.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, there was another. Anyway, well, hopefully they. Hopefully.
They click OK.
Wait.
Okay,
it says 37. They're moving. Okay, they're moving. All right, fair enough.
Oh,
There they come. All right. There was a sign down there. Yes. Yeah, good. Okay. Okay. Good. Well.
Also, people waiting.
Well, that's no good. It's up here. There's a sign on the door.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, this kind of thing happens a lot around here. There was someone else using the room. I thought I fixed it with the sign, but anyway, since we've interrupted, do I need an ad code if I'm on the waiting list? You should have one. You should have an ad code in your email if you're on the waiting list.
Is it possible to add that ad code with the new horrible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's very painful.
Roll that out should be taken out the shop.
Well, yes, it is very painful to use the ad codes, but technically you have one. Okay, good. Yes, it is in fact quite a challenge to use them. But people tell me if you show up in the daytime in person, you can do it. And if you put it on a piece of paper, you can do it. And some people say they've even done it online by being very, very patient. I'm not sure. But it is certainly not easy. Well, anyway, supposedly some people will appear. Here come some people. Good. Okay. Yes. Sorry about that. Okay, here they come. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. All right. Okay. Well, I had no idea. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Yeah, I think, let's see if we got even more coming. Yes, another person was using that room, so I moved it up here. I left a sign on the door, but this didn't seem to be a huge success like I thought it would be. In any case, this is actually a better room, but well, I'm going to have to go back and repeat a bit of what I said, I think, since half the people weren't here. So, yeah, I think so, yeah. So, all right. Anyway, once we've got everybody, let me just summarize what's already happened here. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, we'll be here from now on. This room was available. It's a better room. All right. I'm sorry for the confusion. Anyway, let me summarize the most important things, which is this. Everything's on my website, samsclass.info. And we're just going through the official Splunk certification class. So what you have to do is there's no textbook. There's a free online course, which we're using instead. And you click this link and sign in with an email address. You get a free 30-day access. If you cannot finish it in 30 days, you should save the files locally. And if that doesn't work, let me know and I can transfer to you my saved copy. But in principle, I'm not supposed to be distributing it. Everyone is supposed to log in and get their own. So we'll start with that, and I'll cope with the special cases as they may emerge. There's quizzes you take in an online system. You just click this link and join it. It's the same Canvas server I've been using for a couple of years. It's not the same as the City College standard Canvas server, but anybody can take quizzes there. And this stuff is all live streamed and recorded. It'll be put up on my webpage. It's saved on YouTube, so you can connect to the class remotely and you can view them as saved videos later if you want to. And there's the schedule. This class only meets 6 times, so it's several weeks apart, the various meetings. And there is actually no penalty for doing things late in this 1-unit class, but I do recommend these days to keep people moving. And by the way, if you actually get the real certification, you'll get an A. You can ignore all my homework and projects, of course, and quizzes. The real certification amounts to the same. That's true of all my classes. And here there's a cert, which I recommend. It's $100, takes 1 hour, about 40 or 50 questions. Wasn't too hard, yeah. You do have to be in person for the certification, I think. I think I read some kind of option for doing it another way, but you have to like set up a webcam and somehow be monitored. I think there is some way to do it online in principle, but it looked like a lot of hassle. So I did it in person. I just went to a high school in Daly City. Or they do search tests. They seem to be doing a pretty good business in them down there too. There's some talk about having a testing center on campus, but I don't think you got it working yet. Those are good questions. Anyway, so the most important thing you got to do is go to here and sign up for your copy of the online course. And so let me just go back here and review some of this since half the people missed it. So this is just you'll get your copy of these slides and you'll get a copy of all the labs. So the point of Splunk is to search log data. It's Google for log data. So you have these forwarders on all your devices, your web server, your email server, your switches, your routers, your firewalls, everything has a forwarder running on it, which is a little piece of code that doesn't slow it down much and doesn't do much. It just does like what syslog would. It just takes the data from this device that you choose and forwards it. It can be the Windows event log or anything else, and that goes to an indexer. The indexer takes the log and turns it into events. It has a standard format where it has a timestamp and a few other standard fields, and it puts them in an index and zips it. And that's its job, to just organize the data so it'll be easily searched later. And the search head up here is the one that does most of the work. This is something that searches through that in response to queries that come from the user. And that can be quite a job. So you'll see a lot in the projects about making your queries more efficient, because it is very easy to write a query that will be very slow. So there are This is all Splunk Enterprise I'm describing. You get a 60-day free trial of Splunk Enterprise, and then it turns into a free version, which has most of the features, but is limited to only so many gigabytes of data per day, so many megabytes of data per day. Normally, all of our training is not going to analyze live network data. We're just going to use saved logs of network data so we can all be on the same page. This is typically what you do in a training environment, but in a real network, you mainly have it scanning real live data. There's a cloud version where the servers all run on the Splunk cloud and you pay for that. And there's a light version. Neither of those are covered by this certification level, so I don't really know what they do in any detail. You can have apps, you can download apps, and people contribute them. So you can add extra features, and we did some of these when we did the boss of the NOC and boss of the SOC CTFs, which Splunk runs. And they write things like an app looking for ransomware, an app looking for intrusions of various kinds. People write these and contribute them. Some people charge for them, and they really get quite nuts. We're not going to be writing apps or even using any custom apps in this certification class. We're just learning how to use the basic stuff. This is the beginner level Splunk cert. There are many higher level certs beyond it that are beyond this class. And here's a bunch of fancy versions. There's user behavior analytics, an artificial intelligence version, and an enterprise security version, all of which are beyond this class, but those are the more expensive big offerings, which I just think are addressed in the later certs. I only have the first cert, which is all I thought was necessary. Even just the first cert, I think, is quite valuable in the job market. Everybody uses Splunk. It's very expensive, and they all pay for it anyway because it really works. And like Windows Server, Active Directory domain controllers, and Microsoft Office, it's worth what it costs. Your employees will really be more productive when you give them a tool that works, and it's worth paying money to get it. So there's three kinds of users. The administrator can do anything. The power user is the main one we'll use in this class, and you can have users too that are even more limited. One thing to mention is that you cannot delete data. You can insert data, but you cannot delete it at all. This is by design because attackers would, of course, like to kill the log data. And in Security Onion, which is the open source product, basically Security Onion was the original product made out of open source tools designed by Linux type developers, and they developed all these techniques, and they made a product which is free and very, very hard to use. I taught this class in Security Onion once or twice, and it was miserable. And I learned what everybody else learned. The point of Security Onion is to torture you until you decide you can stand to pay for Splunk. Like many open source products, technically all the features are there, but nothing works, and you suffer. Which it's just like you take serious employees and give them open office and tell them, there, now be productive. And they're like, God, I hate this thing. The features aren't there. It doesn't work. Why don't you just pay what it costs to get the real product that works? And if you're the boss and you actually make money at your business, it is very hard to understand why you would torture your employees by giving them junk when their time is worth money. Anyway, so Splunk is very popular and very expensive. Yeah.
Question, is the local version, I know in the cloud version, you pay for 30, 60, 90 days worth of data. So you have a time window and then a size limit on that data.
I would imagine, but I'm not quite sure how the pricing model works, but that sounds good. The locally, you pay by the megabyte. Okay. You pay for so many megabytes per day of data. Okay. And it turns out that you have a lot of megabytes per data by the time you've got a few servers and stuff. So it can easily be many thousands of dollars a year. Just like your Windows servers are many thousands of dollars a year, you can easily be paying $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 a year. And people find that to be worth it.
I'm wondering if you limit the retention of, cut down on the cost.
I don't think you can limit the retention, but you could ingest less data if you wanted to. Most people say you will be sorry. This is false economy. You will not be glad when you have an incident and you saved money by not really putting all the data in there. But you could, in principle, do it. But I mean, if you're going to be like that, you might as well use Security Onion if you want to enjoy the saving money that way. This is, like, well, I've been in companies that save money by giving the employees crappy machines without enough RAM, and then you leave that company, you go work for somebody else when you're tired of being like that. It's a cruel thing. Human life is worth something. Anyway, so I already installed Splunk here. The installation process is very simple. You can put it on any operating system. It's fine. I put it on Windows because Windows is the most irritating, worst operating system. And I wanted to demonstrate that it works fine. All you do is install it exactly the same way you install anything else. You just double click an installer and go next, next, next. Give it a username and a password. And then you'll see this interface, which is just a web browser on localhost 8000. That's all it's doing. It's like many products, I did not bother writing a GUI. They just connected it to a web browser, and you can use a web browser. This is very common for open source products and very common for multi-platform products. So their developers don't really need to learn how to use the Windows API and draw a window and all that. They just serve it up through a browser, and you control it through a browser. So you can search here. Search and reporting is the only app we're going to use. And here you can put in queries and search through data. And then you have a history of your searches here. And over here is the timeline. This is going to be an annoyance for us. For training purposes, now in a real enterprise class deployment, what you really use is those forwarders, forwarding your live network data to the search appliance. But for training purposes, we're going to import static files of archived network data. And that means when you import it, it's going to be that day. And by next week, it's going to be a week old. So the fact that the default search is the last 24 hours is going to annoy you. Every time you search, you will find nothing. So you have to adjust this. Now, you click this, you can choose various windows like 30 seconds and business week to date and so on. What we're going to use all the time is all time. And like many training products, you do something and they keep telling you, remember in the real world, don't do it this way. They say, don't use all time on a real company network because it's very slow. That's not usual. And the most important thing you can do to make your searches more efficient is to limit the time range. So be aware, we're going to have to use all time all the time, though, for what we're doing here. Right now, I have no data, so I can't demonstrate any searches yet. This is the first module of lab, is just to install the thing and get it working. The second module is putting in the data, and we'll be there in a couple of minutes here. So that's, you log in. There are apps. The only thing we're going to use here is the home app and the search and reporting app. There's a lot of other apps you can add, but they're not part of this course. This is only the introductory level course where you learn the basics. So the Splunk logo will always take you home. And the search and reporting app is here. And here you can search for things, you can save searches, you can create reports and dashboards with search data that other people can see. And you can make things for junior analysts to use that will automatically search for interesting events, or you can make things for management to look at that summarize things like sales this week and so on. Those are all here for this purpose. You can use Splunk to monitor for security events, or to monitor performance of your network, or to monitor performance of your business, like sales by location, by product. And it can do anything a database can do. All it really is just a web interface into a database. And if you've done any database administration, it's very familiar, which is probably why I did the whole course this morning before breakfast to get all the projects ready. I'd already done it before, but I was a DBA for years. So this is really very ordinary database functions that's going on here. You will find it to be pretty easy to do these projects. So you have search terms go here. If you put multiple, you can just put words here like you would in Google. You just put in a keyword and it will search for events that have that keyword. You can do things more precisely, like naming a field name equals a keyword. But if you just put in a keyword, it will just search the way Google will for that word. They don't seem to like you doing this. I think it's less efficient. When we did the Boston and Knock, that's how I actually won a lot of things. They had these complicated queries. I would just type the word and find it. It does work. Anyway, if you type multiple words, they all have to be present. It connects them with an and, which you don't have to type. You can type an and in or an or. You have to use capital letters, and it'll be and or. You can use parentheses to make combined terms, but if you just type in a few words, it will connect them with and look for events that have all those words. Over here, you'll see a summary of the events, all the events that are available, and the earliest and latest event, so you have a general idea what's available to you. And that's why I know I can't do anything now, because there are no events here. So there's no data at all. There's no point trying to search anything right now. All right. You have summary tabs. Now, there are certain events Events are records. They're like a log entry, but they're a more general thing because you're getting logs from many devices. And the fundamental problem with Splunk is the same as the fundamental problem with Google. The data is not really structured. You have some devices that record the IP address and the time and then the name of the server and this and that, and other devices have different data. They're not really sending the same data in, so you can't really put them in a nice structured database. But there are certain fields you always have, like some kind of timestamp. And so Splunk finds a few items it puts in everything. It puts source type, host. Host is the unique identifier of where it came from. The source is the name of the stream it came from, and you can have live streams that stream direct network data. And there's a source type, and this is what includes the format. So if you have some standard thing that is well known, like a Windows event log, Splunk has a default interpreter for that, where it understands what formats that in, and it will put it in, and that is the source type. If you have some other thing like a firewall appliance, there's probably a source type for that. If you have some kind of custom device with an unknown log, you'll have to define your own source type for it, which tells Splunk how to read the input from this device and find the all-important stuff, like the timestamp. All right, and here, all right, so here's the events tab. This is what an event looks like. An event is what you might think of as a log entry, but it is a more general thing because it can come from many logs. So here, this is from a www2, looks like a web server of some kind. It's got a timestamp, failed password for invalid user. Here's more failed passwords. All I'm seeing here is failed passwords because it's searched for error or fail. So these are all going to be some kind of error, and these all look like failed password events from some device. You'll see all the things that have the word error in them or fail star. Fail, any word starting with fail in it. Now over here, you'll see a summary of the types of events. There are 7 hosts that have events like that, 10 sources, 5 source types, and so on. There are various fields that give us general information about what events have those words in them. And this is the way you can start digging in to find out what happens. So the events we're going to use come from a fictional game company called Buttercup Games that manufactures some games and sells them. And we're going to be looking at their data. So you're a power user and you're going to be creating reports to answer various questions, security questions and business summaries. So that's the game here. All right, and that's module 1. So module 2 is even shorter, I think, which is Splunk components. We already talked about this. These are the 3 main components. The forwarder is the little agent on all your devices that just forwards data back, like the syslog. The indexer ingests the data, puts a timestamp on it, decides what formats it's in, and resolves the data into fields as best it can and puts it in the database. And the search head is what takes search queries from the user and hunts through that database to give you reports. The search head can be slow, demand a lot of resources, and be expensive to run if you have sloppy searches that search through all time and through very many events. If you write your searches more carefully, like restricting the time and having restrictions on which events and sources to look at, it can be much better. So a lot of the book, it's not important at this level for passing the cert test to write efficient queries, but they do remind you frequently that you should be beginning to think about how much CPU you're consuming. And you will notice in some of the last modules, you can actually slow down your own little Splunk here by writing bad queries. So the indexer is processing machine data. So in comes all these log files in all different formats. They're not random, they're systematic, and it has to know a format statement for each one. Then it indexes them and puts them in this big compressed index, and that's stored as a series of compressed files. That's the job of the indexer. The search heads take data from the queries from the user, and then they use knowledge objects on the search head, which can extract additional fields. You can create extra things that combine data in some way to find fields, and then it does queries against all this index data to find how many events match your criteria and display them to you so you can answer questions and design more queries based on the information you find, which is the standard. If you've never done database administration, this is your life. You have a huge pile of data. You need to know something like which vendors did not pay their bill You have a giant list of transactions and purchases. You have to design a query to get a list of all the vendors, then a giant query to get all the payments, then some query that connects them, then some query that takes the ones that we billed but that didn't pay. And you go through an iterative process of first finding stuff and then refining it until you track down what you need. And that's how Splunk works as well. So that's what the search heads do. They let you do queries, and then they also have these pretty things. You can make tables of data, you can sort them, you can have aggregate totals, you can make bar charts and pie charts and all sorts of pretty gadgets to display the results nicely, which is very important in a business context. Of course, your marketing department and your upper management wants a beautiful thing they can understand easily. They don't want some page full of baffling code. All right. And the forwarders are just little pieces of software that do not slow anything down very much or consume very much network resources or CPU, because that's the point. You don't want to waste your time. It just quickly gathers a log file or something from that device and sends it over the network. So it's sending information, session disconnected, session connected, and so on from your web server, passing the data you choose to harvest into the indexer.
So you can actually take the forwarders and say, take all of these type of events, but don't take these because.
Yes, in principle you can.
Right.
Yeah, and I know you can do it with, I've done it with the Windows Sysmon. For example, you can have the Windows event log, which is a default event log. You can then add an optional product Sysmon, which is a Windows sysinternal tool that harvests more information, and you can configure it to collect this data or that data and not this data or that data, which is what you do, so it collects the data relevant to what you're using and forwards it.
So generally, by default, forwarders just take it.
You choose them. You choose your forwarder. You choose what to ingest.
Right.
It's in the configuration of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and but actually configuring them is beyond this class. I've done it a little bit for special purpose of ransomware, but we're not doing it at this level. Yeah.
How long is Splunk?
It keeps your data forever. There's no way to remove it. It says this many times. This is because the bad guys would like to hack you and then delete the log file. So the only way to remove it, I think, is outside Splunk, to like uninstall it, erase the data, take it away. You know, it doesn't have a feature anywhere called edit the data, remove the data. It doesn't want to make that easy. Of course, the data is living in some kind of database on a server, and you can erase it with other tools.
So you're gonna have to keep buying more storage.
Well, you will have to have some plan of archiving the old stuff, I guess, and moving it to an old instance. But I think that is outside Splunk, and it might be in those more expensive management tools. It's a very good question. You would think eventually you have to clean out the old data. There must be some way to do it. But at this level, all the documents say there's no way to do it. So I'm sure it's an advanced process, and I'm sure you'd have to have pretty good security to make that difficult, because you don't want the bad guy to be able to erase the data. At least that's what I think. So here's other things you might have. You can have a deployment server. A deployment server would have all the agents and distribute them over your network to go to all your various devices. And you can have a cluster master to have server clusters all running Splunk to make it faster for a huge network, and a license master, just like your Microsoft license deployment server, to distribute all the Splunk licenses to prove that you've really paid for all those Splunk instances you're using, so they don't turn off on you for not having been paid for. Usual deal. A single server is what we're going to use, of course, in this class. That's everything all in one box. This is, of course, not useful in a production environment. It's just for training and very small networks. That's one way where you might practice developing things, but of course, it's not going to be powerful enough to handle a real amount of data from a real group of servers. And so you can deploy a Splunk server here. You can put a forwarder. And here's the basic deployment for organizations. You can use a single server if you have less than 20 gigabytes of data per day, for less than 20 users. These are the rules of thumb. You'll find similar rules of thumb for Windows domains. Microsoft says if you have less than 10 users, you don't need a domain controller, but more than 10 you do. It's the same kind of rule of thumb. So you can have multi-index instance deployment to have many machines in a cluster splitting up the data. And of course, this is what you have to do for really large deployments. And you can have a cluster of heads for search heads and a deployer to distribute the apps to all these and so on. You know, like anything else, it scales up to the moon because the really huge enterprise top companies are using it, and they're of course not using small things. They're using multi-location cloud distributions with all these things working together. There are non-replicating index clusters in addition that you can use for special purposes in really large environments. All right. And so now there's the hands-on modules. Module 3, you install Splunk, which we've already done. It's very easy. You put in the Splunk Enterprise and all these components are put on your device. They run right locally. And you can put it on Unix or Windows. There's actually a Splunk command line version, but you do not have to use it at this level. It's used by the later certifications. In principle, you can deploy it all from the command line if you're a super Unix type guy, but in fact, everybody uses it in that web-based GUI. That's what you're going to spend your time as a beginning Splunk user. You're going to get the job not of installing it or putting on the forwards or configuring it. Your job is going to be using it. That's what typical analysts do. Something is already running and they want you to be the one using it, looking for things. This is the first job at security operations centers. It is the less desirable one. These people are, in the old days, they were reading email all day long. Now they're running repetitive queries all day long to look for certain bad things. And so this is where you start, and people usually try to get off of that job within about 6 months because it's kind of boring. But it is how you get started. It's how you prove that you are smart and they can trust you before they move you up. Sort of like the frontline tech support, the guy that answers the phone and tells you to try restarting your computer. You know, you got to start somewhere. So we're going to get data in. This next thing we're going to do. It ingests data. First, it has input where you gather the data from whatever the source is. It might be raw network traffic or logs or something. Then it's a parsing phase where it breaks it up into chunks. It finds the timestamp and a few other fields, and then it indexes them. It puts them in a database which is structured to some extent. That's the indexer's job, to index this data. You can import files of any kind. You can have raw network data. You can take any kind of script that puts out anything and ingest it. You can access Windows logs, firewalls logs, server logs, Apache logs. There are ingesters for all these things. There's an HTTP event collector and many, many apps and a whole open source community of people writing ingesters for every possible gadget that you might want. It's technically controlled with a file called index_inputs.conf, and you could actually edit that file, but we're not going to do that in this class. We're just going to use the GUI. But all the GUI does is edit that file. So it assigns metadata values, which is source, host, source type, and index. You can define an index parameter and you can separate your data. Like this might be the San Francisco data and this might be the London data. You could do something like that, and you're highly encouraged to do so because that will greatly speed up your queries if you can limit your query to an index. Just like we're going to use all time all the time, we're going to use index main all the time, both of which are for us appropriate, but not appropriate in an enterprise class installation. These are another thing they'll constantly remind you in the projects is in the real world, don't just search on index main all the time. But that's where all the data goes if you don't specify the index, and that's what we're going to do. So you can just put data in right from the web with data inputs, and you add data here. Let me just do it live. We got our Splunk running here, and there's a file that you just download from Splunk, which I've got right here called Splunk F1 data. So you unzip that thing. Splunk just gives you a URL and you can download this data, and it gives you always the same data, but it changes the date to today. So this opens a file, and now I have 3 databases. I have a database, I have an access log for I think a web server, and some Linux logs. Those are the 3 types of data that I've got that are archived here. And you see they're not that big, 39 megs, 4 megs, 6 megs. That's our data. So to ingest the data, you just go here and go to the, is it here, data sets? All right, I'm looking for, oh, it's on the home tab, add data. All right, let's not show me that. Go to the home tab, which is Splunk Enterprise. And there we are, add data. So you can add data from various sources. I'm going to skip the tutorial. You can get it straight from the network. You get operating system logs or security logs. You can monitor ports and things live. But in this case, we're going to upload files that contain data. This is not the main thing you would do in an enterprise class environment, but it's appropriate for training. So I'm going to upload. And now it just asks me where's the file. So I select file. It's on my desktop in here, temp. All right, and here's mine. There's 3 files. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I input slow log or suricata log in?
Put what?
IDS slow or suricata.
I'm not sure I understand the question, but you can certainly customize all these things. You can input any kind of file or any kind of data. And you'll even see here, we'll be able to customize the process. So let me show you the lab I'm following. When you download your materials, you will get a PDF, which is all the lessons, and you'll get a bunch of other things with long names, which I shortened, Module 3, 4, 5, and 6. These are the hands-on labs. Module 3 just tells you how to install it, which is incredibly simple. Download the file, click next, next, next. Module 4, this tells you how to ingest the data. And this is what the labs look like. So unzip this file, you'll see these 3 files. And I'm opening it up to remind me because these 3 files have to be ingested in different ways to show off the filtering features that we need. So the first one is access 30-day. And this one, I think it automatically detects. Access combined with cookie. This is web server logs. I think it's Apache logs. So let's start with that one. Access combined with cookie is here. Access 30-day. Okay. Now I got the source, and it is uploading the data to the server. Then next. Okay, now it's going to ask me about the source type. This is where it has to have some idea what the format of your data is. And it automatically guessed that this is access log combined with a cookie. And that is in fact correct. So I'm just going to accept that. And it's just next. And then I can put a name in as a host field value, and I'm going to call it web application. So it's next here. Now I get a chance to name it. Otherwise, it's going to give it a stupid name like the Windows name of the machine. So I'm going to call it what? Web application. By the way, don't be creative. Use exactly these names because they're used in the later projects. So web application is fine, and I don't think I need to change anything else. Yep, that's all for this one. So it's going to accept this as a standard web log and submit it, uploads the file, and it won't take long. Okay, so now it's done. Now I could start searching right now, and maybe I'll do that because we should be able to see that now we have some data. And indeed, we do. Down here, it already started searching this log. These are the things you could set to limit the log to just the log here. And here it is searching. Notice it's taking some time. The events is still going up. It's still taking time hunting through it. And while it hunts, it's updating this graphical timeline. And it's showing you some of the events down here. This is the actual raw data you're searching through. There are a few standard things like a timestamp and a few other items here, like host and source type. And then it has found other fields, which are available here, like JSession for Java session ID and so on, URI path, URI query. Here's the events. This is the first few of many, many events. I've got 131,000 events in this one log. That's why, they charge by the gigabyte of log, and they're not kidding. You've got a lot of data. Anyway, so that one's in there. Let's bring in some more. I go back home and I add data. And let me go back. I'm going to upload. I know that much. And let's go look at my instructions. We're going to do a slightly different version of add data for this one, which is here. So the second one is Linux S 30-day. And for Linux S, I'm going to use Linux Secure from the operating system menu. So select file, Linux 30-day, open, it uploads the thing, and then next. And now it did not figure out the source automatically. I have to tell it. So I have to click this and then go to operating systems, and then I have various pre-canned versions of operating systems, and this one is Linux Secure, format for the var log secure file, which is apparently what this is, the Linux security log. So I click that, and now it can interpret that data. So it parses the data and shows it here. It found the timestamp and it found other information here, like the error message and such. And then it's the only thing that matters is here, I'm going to record it as web server. I saw a chat message come in. Let me take a look and see what they're saying. Wait, that's not what I wanted. I'm looking for the chat message. Here, chat message. There. Would a company normally be using something like Snort along with Splunk? Yes, you totally can have Snort and Suricata and your IDS feeding into Splunk, and you often would. It's a very good question. All your others, and your antivirus too, your endpoint security is feeding up things it detects, and they're going into Splunk. You totally want them there because you want to find a virus came in. Let's find the network traffic that brought it in. Let's find what machine that connects to. Your security products are not replaced by Splunk. Splunk adds to them by helping you search through all their output. Good. All right, and so the only thing here I think is to name it web server, which is that's what they want, I think. Am I confused? I'm like Linux 30 days web server. Okay, fair enough. All right, and then review, and there we go. So the web server data is going up. All right, and now we got one more set of data to put in, which is the third one, DB audit, which is a database file. This one, we're going to make a custom format called DB audit for it. So it's going to be add more data. Upload. Select file, DB audit. Open. And next. And here it's a CSV. And in this case, we're going to just save it as a new name called DB audit and call it, I think it's going to figure out by itself that it's a Postgres audit log. We're going to do save as, and maybe not. Just a moment. Splunk automatically selected a source type of CSV. We want to create a new type, so we save as DB audit and a description, a Postgres audit log. Okay, DB audit. Yep, and Postgres auto log. All right, category database system. I'm creating a new type of log here with this process. I save that, and I'm going to call it database as the host, which I think I might have missed, but anyway, I'm just going to carry on. Set source type. Wait, I see. Now I go next. Now I'm going to get a chance to call it database. Okay, database. Okay, and then review and submit. And up we go. Okay, and now when you go home and then go to the search tab, we should now have a big pile of data. Down here, we should see a whole pile of events, and there we go. 216,000 events, and this is 3 months old because that's my file I downloaded 3 months ago when I started this. Yours will be today at first. All right, so that is that part of it. And I think we've been here for about an hour. I might actually just, let me take a look at my plan and see if I want to stop here or do some more. We did the first 4 topics, which is as far as I really wanted to go. You can read about these and go ahead. You'll find the basic searching to be very good. Let me just, so it's a little more concrete. Let me just take a little bit of the next module, because that's where you actually use it. All this is just setup, which is kind of boring. So let's show you a little bit of what good it is. So now, if we search, we can do this error or fail star, which is one they've used before. So suppose I want to find attacks or some kind of problem. So I could search for error. If I just search for error, I have 216,000 events. If I search, I get nothing. What's wrong? the time. 24 hours, right? My data is 3 months old. I'm never going to find anything in the last 24 hours. I got to go to all time, okay? And now it searches. Now it finds 499 events, 1,700. It's still going. It takes some time. And here's errors. So I got cart errors. And down here, I probably got other things, but I might not see them. A lot of these are post-cart errors. So this is somebody trying to buy a product and something went wrong with the shopping cart, which might be fine. And by the way, you can now zoom in on individual days. Like if I want to see these 47 events on that day, I just click that and it will show me those events in the fullness of time, or I thought it would. Maybe it's not listening to me as well as it should. Yeah, it is. These are the 47 events. Now I have those events. You can also zoom in and zoom out. When you zoom in, it does not repeat the query. It just shows you a subset, which saves time. So now I can see the specific events. So if you see a peak of events here, some kind of attack or some kind of problem, you could quickly zero in on that one day and find out what happened. All right, if I want to see what else is going on here, I could see like client IP. If I click on that, it will show me all the client IP values and how many of each times each happened. And I could get the top values for the client IP, and it'll show me who the top people that had this event are. So you get a lot of ways to drill in and mess with it. Let me just go back and do the original thing you're going to do here, error or fail star. So it's error or, capital or, fail star, there. And that will find all the errors and failures. So here's the cart errors, and it's still finding more, 13,000, 23,000, 33,000, and so on. There's various events, and notice there's 2 hosts and anything else fun to dig in down here. I don't know what punct is. I guess I could find out. Punct is this weird stuff. Yikes. I don't know what that is. Something feeds in something called punct, like punctuation or something. Lord knows what that is. Often you find strange things. And anyway.
You got the process found with this punctuation like that.
Yeah, of course, yes. Maybe it's looking for entries that just had funny punctuation. It looks like kind of an IDS sort of thing. It would be interesting to figure out what field led to that. But anyway, this, by the way, is what I spent a lot of my time in the CTF doing, is like I'm trying to find the IP address, and there are like 6 different names of things that contain IP addresses. And this is actually a real problem, because there's the IP address that was used to deliver the traffic from the network. And then when it gets there, there's the IP address in the web address. And then there's the IP address in the log from your security appliance, like Snort. And those are really not exactly the same thing. And so there are many different IP address fields that don't exactly mean the same thing. And that's why it takes experience to learn to interpret these things. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. So your job by next class is to make your free online account and go through the first 4 modules, which might sound like a lot, but it's not. And there's some quizzes to take online to show that you've read through the slides, and there's some projects. The projects are incredibly simple. All the projects they tell you what to turn in to prove that you did it. Most of them automatically go in, you find a number here and you put it in to prove that you did it. Some of them you send a screenshot in by email to my grader because I couldn't find a good number that I thought was reliable enough. But you just do the projects that Splunk gave you, and towards the end you make a screenshot or find a number just to prove you did them. And that's just to convince me that you've done it. You could also completely ignore the City College system and all my grading system and just pass the real cert exam. That would be fine too. But my plan is, of course, that if you jump through my hoops, that will be preparing you for the cert exam. I highly recommend you all get certified. It's worth $100. It'll look good on your resume. Anyway, any questions about anything? Does anybody need ad codes? All right.
You can't even get to the web form.
Yeah, but if you're not going to see me again for a few weeks, so I might as well I'll give you ad codes for whatever good that does you.
There's nowhere to put it in.
Well, some people have succeeded in adding. Some people have, I think.
I've heard of people in different ways.
To some classes. There are a couple students that have succeeded. Yeah, so please, I don't know the answer, but it can be done. Let's have a couple experts. Anybody got any tips? How do you do it? You get an ad code, what do you do?
for me, it didn't let me do it until after I was on a wait list for a while, one of the courses. Then after it dropped me off the wait list, I was able to go back to the original listing in the class schedule and then add it again there and use the add code.
So you were able to do it online, yeah. Other people tell me if you actually use a piece of paper and turn it in, there's a Dropbox, that works. The piece of paper is the easiest answer. You just write this code on the piece of paper. Yeah, well, you don't have to come during the daytime, though. They have a night repository. There's a box on the registration office, like a night depository at the bank. You can just stick it in there. That's probably the best solution. Anyway, does anybody online want an ad code? Aha, here are some chat messages. I am on the wait list, but I did not receive an email. Sure. So, okay, here's Benjamin and Stacy want ad codes. I'm going to put it right here. Okay, Benjamin. And Stacy is here. Okay, so you should see it on your screen. Benjamin is 7GED19 and Stacy is 7J7 ESN. Who in the room wants an ad code? Okay, Nina, I see you're one of them. Have an ad code. And I'm just gonna zoom into this for people in the room. Okay, who else? Okay, Carla, right. Okay, right. All right, good. And what's your name?
Vico, W-I-K-R-O-N.
Okay, good. All right. And who else? Okay, good. Charles, right? Good. Who else? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Good, looks like I have enough codes. I'll just leave them up there, make sure and write it down. It's sort of long and complicated. And they have irritating things like O's and zeros and I's and ones just to add to the joy of the process. Yeah, taking a picture of it might be the best move. Anyway, good. Give it a shot. Good luck with the City College system. It's pretty irritating, but I'll give you a badge if you finish my course outside the system. So people that are don't care about City College system will get that for whatever it's worth. I got some art over the Christmas break, so I will have official badges to give people. People have asked for those. I can't guarantee that anyone will care, but I can at least issue them to people that so that you satisfy just the course to my satisfaction. And maybe somebody will care. I don't know. Yeah. You do. You have to pay $100. It's cheaper than like A+. I paid $100 and it's an hour, and actually it took me like 10 minutes. It's totally online in the same old system, and it's these multiple choice tests, and they're all things that were on these PowerPoints, so I went through them a few times, and it was pretty easy. If you know the stuff in those slides, and there aren't very many of them, that's it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to the lab for a while, 214, if anybody wants to work here. I'm going to stop the online bit to preserve the recording. Yeah.